All right, Safehouse family, it's your boy Andre back at you again, and I'm by myself, solo dolo today. We don't have the missus with us because this is King's Edition. So our second in a series of episodes designed to help men be better in their relationships. Once again, we are about using individual continuous improvement to help with collective continuous improvement. So if you are a man and you're talking about or thinking about what leadership looks like in my relationship context, maybe even you want to start to explore what leadership looks like in my work and marketplace context, this is the episode for you. Ladies, we know you're watching and we know you're listening. We know you are ear hustling. That is absolutely fine. That just lets us know that you're invested in learning more about your man and what makes him tick. So hopefully we don't say anything that offends you, but just know this is a safe space for men. Now, the question I would have for you ladies, if you're desiring a leader, the question is, are you prepared to be led? That's something to think about, huh? So I want to introduce my guest today, but before I do that, just a couple of preliminaries. One, June 8th and 9th, the Mrs. and I Safehouse will be in Memphis, Tennessee. The information will be on the screen here for you. We will be at Dwelling Place International Church under Apostle Ken Tony for his relationship weekend. So married, single, considering a relationship. Outside of a relationship, thinking about it, it is for you. We will be discussing and going further into issues of access. If you refer back to the first episode of this season, we opened up talking about access and what that means in a dating or courting context, also what it means in a marriage context. So we're going to dig into that access because the goal is we want to make sure that while you're dating, that you're courting, that you have boundaries around what should have boundaries, that there's disclosure where there should be disclosure. And then once you're in that place of marriage, that open access is provided. So that's the goal. And we'll be talking about it. So if you're in the Memphis area, come see us at Dwelling Place International Church. All right, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so that you can be notified when content comes along. So that's the opener. That's the preliminaries. Now we're going to get into this. So my guest today is, I'm honored and privileged to have this brother take time out of his very busy schedule and invest in our little community here called Safehouse. Dr. Tony Bolden is an ardent evangelist of leadership development, holds a master's, MBA actually, in organizational psychology and development. I'm getting tongue-tied here. And a doctorate of management in organizational leadership with a research focus on sales leadership and development. And most of all, he is a lifelong student of leadership. I think it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, where someone that proclaims themselves to be an expert is not really an expert, but those that proclaim themselves to be students are really the experts. In my eyes, he's really, really an expert when it comes to these things. So he is the husband of one wife, father to two beautiful daughters. So he's a girl dad. So he understands the nuances and the challenges, the upsides and the downsides of relationships. A person that I'm very privileged to call my friend. I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Tony Bolden. Welcome to the show, my brother. My brother, how are you doing?
Man, I am blessed. Thanks for having me. Honored to be here. I saw your previous episodes and I was like, okay, when it's my turn. But I'm excited. We've known each other for so long. I'm trying to keep it professional. So,
well, we're in a safe space. Let's be real, right? So I ain't gonna hide the fact that this brother's my friend, and we've gone through many journeys together. We were roommates at one point, and just fraternal connect, just everything, life connections all the way back to high school. So I'm not hiding that, right? So you're not far off and distant. And I'm just glad, to be at the place where you are in your life. I'm just glad to be close to you. So I ain't shame.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'm a reflection of those around me. So trust me, bro, it took me a minute to hit my stride, but you laid some good foundation for me. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, my brother. Thank you. So let's get into this. We're talking about leadership, and you are the leadership guru. And so, just to give you a form and flavor today, we have brothers in relationships, on the path to relationships, and this leadership thing can seem elusive. Some people believe that leadership is just kind of something that you're born with. Others believe it's something that, you can learn. Sometimes, at least for me, I believe leadership is just kind of a personal characteristic that can show up everywhere. Situations can dictate leadership, and it's more of a mindset and a core value than it is some sort of skill to be acquired, in my opinion. But I'm not the expert, and I'm speaking out of turn. So before we dig into that, let's have your, I know I've introduced you, but is there anything you want to say about yourself and your journey in this study of leadership?
Oh yeah, just first of all, I agree with you, and we will get there. But no, I'm just honored to be here with you. You've known me since I did the math since I was 17, Andre. Just for those who don't know me, born and raised on the South Side of Chicago, proud Mendel Catholic College prep graduate. Oh. Born and raised there. I'm married, beautiful wife in Metro Atlanta. Graduated from high school 2 years early. So I skipped 2 grades in grammar school and I turned 16 during my freshman year in college. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't ready for college, clearly. So spent a little bit of time in college and came back home to regroup and do better and met you. Actually, I met you before I went to college, I believe, but ended up going to Chicago State and was a full-time student there until you got me my first corporate job. And then I became a part-time student. And 4 or 5 years into that job, they transferred me here to Atlanta. And I've literally been here. It'll be 30 years this in July as a result of that. And so going back to school as an adult. And to your point, just couldn't stop learning. And so, they give you a degree, great. I'll take it. But just that pursuit. And to your point, one of the questions I often get is, how did you get into, following leadership? What made you want to study leadership? And I was always curious about how do you get things done through other people, right? And because that's essentially what leadership is, hint, hint, wink, wink. And so just the study of that, the inspiring people to kind of come along your journey and to accomplish things. And so, again, just kind of put some science to it, and it worked its way through, organizational psychology, development, and leadership. And so that's what I do now. In my bio, it's a leadership evangelist. I literally preach the gospel of leadership. That's what I do. So that's me.
It's a noble cause, my brother. Noble, noble, noble cause. And we need more brothers on the front line that are relatable, that people can really tap into, because, once again, it's elusive, right? We see leaders doing great things and they seem far off and distant, inaccessible. And, we just don't know what was the catalyst that got them to that place. And you taking up the cause of saying, no, this is what it looks like to go from this place to this place and sort of embrace this. That's a noble cause. So continue to support you in that. So let's get into the meat. So constructs around leadership, right? So we got some terms out there, right? We'll hear alpha male, we'll hear sigma male. I'm not going to say this person's name, but he has a phrase called top G, right? And these phrases are used a lot in relationship contexts, right? Between men and women, especially in the social media context. So what's your response and perspective on these terms?
Let me answer that by stepping back for a moment, because you called me a leadership expert or a guru, and I get it. Like we joke and all that. But there is no expertise in leadership. Leadership is one of the most studied subjects in human history, right? There's science, there's math, and then there's leadership. And so there have been volumes and millions of volumes of content created across millennia. So it kind of means a lot of different things to different people. So there's no real expert in it. It's just I kind of get in my lane and try to figure things out and to make it relatable. The way I process information, I try to give information the way that I process it because it's in a very simple, bottom shelf form. But most folks don't have a fundamental understanding of what leadership is. We think about it, not to use any biblical references, but I guess it's a safe place to do it, right?
Absolutely.
You often think, the Holy Spirit doesn't come in the wind and in the thunder and in the rain, right? It's that still small voice. Leadership is not these grandiose things. It's not these big gestures. It's not these gigantic movements. Leadership is the small things that are done consistently, cumulatively, right? In guiding other people. And the definition of leader is someone who guides, right? And there's different variations of it, and we can get into the different traits, et cetera, which I'll touch on in a second. But foundationally, my role as a leader is to guide someone or something along the way. That's it. And so when you break it down to that, when you have a fundamental understanding of that essence of it, and this is what I always do whenever I'm talking to folks, whether I'm in a stadium or we're talking one-on-one, is to strip away all that stuff and get down to the fundamental essence of leadership. Because when you do that, then it kind of helps to reframe a little bit around those constructs. Now, specifically with those constructs, you've heard me say this before, right? We all have a pathology. And it's a clinical term, but it's really just a matter of our stuff, right? We all have a pathology based on our biases, based on our experiences, based on our own prejudices, the things that we've gone through, the things that we've seen, all the stuff that makes us us is a part of our pathology. So we process information through the lens of that pathology to make it make sense to us, to either justify us or, for the very few of us, hold us accountable. But for the most part, it is to justify our behavior. So alpha leadership is a clinical term, right? And there's some subject around beta and sigma and all this other stuff. But it's really just folks being able to understand either why they do what they do with this umbrella. It's almost like a zodiac, right? It's like, I'm a Virgo. So if you tell me I'm this, and this, yeah, that sounds like me. So I'll subscribe to the attributes of a Virgo. I'm not an astrologer. I don't, read this stuff and rely on it. Right. But for the most part, I hear the attributes that I think apply to me. And so I internalize that, and now it becomes a part of my pathology. So it's a moniker. It's ways that folks use to justify I don't want to say aggressive because that could be a trigger. I'm assertive.
There you go.
Right. So I'm an assertive person. So that must mean I'm an alpha, fill in the blank, male or female, or I don't like assertive people. So I don't want to be in a relationship with someone who is an alpha. The sigma thing. Right. And so I don't get stuck there. I always bring people back to the core of what leadership is and what it really means and what makes sense to present yourself in those different situations and circumstances. You spoke on this earlier. As a leadership as a persona, I believe is what you called it, or personal characteristic. And I'm paraphrasing, but I say that leadership is a posture, right? We often think of the roles in leadership and the titles that come with that. I see it as a posture. Again, as if I'm someone who guides, it doesn't matter if I'm guiding you from the back of the room, if I'm not even in the room, or if I'm at the front of the room leading, I'm guiding.
Powerful. Because, when you say that, it's so funny because I know, in my life, I'd look at leaders and I'd say, well, man, I don't have what it takes to get that. I'm not built for that. That's not my station. And really breaking it down to say, look, it's not this big explosive thing. It's a posture you take. It's an attitude you take. There was a YouTube video I watched not too long ago that these things represent behavior over time. You can't pinpoint the one moment you fell in love with somebody. You just know that at one point after time of investment and exchange and spending time, you were in love. And I kind of see that way, but that's just my creative imagination running away with me. So,
well, let me cheat a little bit, given our history and that I've known you for over 30 years. When you started off in the IT field, you always said, I'm not a people person, right? You worked in the back of the building, right. You were very task oriented, and you were like, is the least I have to interact with people and I can just do things, the more satisfied I am. And I saw you in your career as you grew. And you talk about a calling and a purpose. You responded in kind because that was your posture. Your posture led you into those roles where it was like, okay, yeah, there are people attached to these. There's initiatives and projects attached to this. But my posture is I'm going to guide through this. And the titles came. The roles came. So you're a perfect example of someone who's just be. I tell people all the time, just be. Okay. And it will come out of you. So I just wanted to use that as an example too. It's not too far off, brother.
All right, we're gonna take up offering for you because you're helping heal.
I got a mortgage to pay. Let's go.
So when you juxtapose leadership and you're heavy in the marketplace, heavy in academia, heavy in all those places, you published, you have books out there. We're gonna plug the book too. We got to get people to get that. 9 Signs of Effective Leadership. All these books that he's got. We're going to have the Amazon links There it is. There it is. So y'all make sure you get this book. Brothers, get this book.
Keep
Ladies,
talking.
get this book. It's for everybody, you know. So he's got books out there, all available on Amazon, paperback or Kindle, however you want. But he's got them all. So, you know, just give them teasers in terms of the book. And you know, so when you look at the differences between leadership in workplace, marketplace, professional, and in leadership in family relationships, are there differences? What have you experienced? I'll turn it over. What do you think?
Yeah, so there shouldn't be. And I've experienced that there was until I realized that there shouldn't be. One of the hallmarks of leadership is authenticity, right? It's not one of my 9 signs, but it's a subset of that. It's authentic. It's being who you are. Remember, I just said just be, right? And so authenticity means that I need to show up in no matter the space as my authentic self. And so you do yourself a disservice, and you do the people who rely on you, whether they're your followers, whether they're your families, whether they're your circle of influence or your friends, you do them a disservice when you give them a manufactured piece of yourself to fit their circumstance, or at least your perception through your pathology of their circumstance. So, you know, and just good example is like, you know, there used to be like corporate Tony, you know this. Mm-hmm. There used to be corporate Tony, right? Right. Then there would be, in fact, we won't go there, but it was corporate Tony. There was social Tony. And back then it was Twan, because my formal name, I didn't say this in the introduction, is Antoine. So Andre is being very judicious by not calling me Twan. But so there was Sigma Tony, there was church Tony, right? And so you have all these different personas and identities, and you're showing up the way that you think you should be seen at home, with your friends, with your fraternity brothers, at work, etc. And for me, it was prior to COVID, but COVID really did a shift in I don't have the energy to be different things to different people. It takes too much, and life is short, and all that stuff that we know that we really got confronted with because we were all experiencing this trauma at the same time. Everybody's going through something, right? But all of us were going through something at the same time. And I didn't have the energy to put the mask on and to change the uniform. And so just my personal testimony, I just like, this is it. This is, and, you know, I'm not a bad person in any of those circumstances. So it's like, why would I, you know, have those, you and I used to joke about the old George Costanza thing, right? About my worlds are colliding, right? It's like, you have all these different things. And it's like, you know, it's not like I'm a completely different person in these circles. It's like, why can't I just converge and be who I am? And so that's what we see, and I espouse or really, you know, push in leadership, is about be your authentic self, because the things that you contribute at home can benefit your circle of friends, can benefit the people that you work with or the people that you lead at work, because it's part of situational leadership, right? There's things that you're doing at home and leading at home that your family needs, but some aspect of that may be needed in the other circles that you lead in. And it just, again, speaks to your authenticity, and it keeps you connected with your purpose. I'm a man of faith. I believe in purpose. I believe in vision. And I really believe that when you're operating in your purpose is not just to be who you are here. It is universal. So wherever I am operating in my be-ness. And so your followers will benefit from that. Anybody assigned to you, anybody in your atmosphere benefits from you operating in your purpose and being authentic. So the long of that was the full explanation. I really don't believe, I think you do yourself and those around you a disservice when you try to segment yourself based on the audience that you're in front of.
Y'all heard this man say showing up as this manufactured version of yourself. You know, that's a deep concept. Sometimes when we counsel singles, and I can't take credit for this. I stole this from Chris Rock, right? That when you go out on a date, you don't send yourself, you send your representative. And so you just don't know how much of that behavior is ingrained in the different lanes of life, you know? So once again, work self, church self, social self, family self. And it can be mentally taxing. and you look up and you're stressed and you're frustrated and you don't know why. Well, you have these personality plates spinning, and to me, it's just much easier to be your authentic self. Now, the bigger question is, what if I don't like my authentic self? How do I fix that? But that's another.
That's not my segment. That's for another guest.
We might have Dr. Wheeler back on for that one, But yeah, that's a deep one. But so you've written a book, and we plugged the book. People are going to buy the book. Your sales are going to go through the roof. So 9 signs. So can you summarize 9 signs? So now we got folks out there, they're intrigued. They're like, I like this guy, Tony Bolden. I may buy his book. How do I quickly, pull out the yardstick and measure myself against his 9 signs?
Sure. And so I want to be very clear. This is not the manual to make you the best leader that you can be. Mm-hmm. It's not the textbook of effective leadership. It is literally written from my pathology and my perspective based on the information that I saw. Some of the data that I gathered over the last 30 years in that job that you got me back in 1991, right? Because we've all been around leaders that have been really effective. We've all been around leaders that have inspired us and that you thought, man, I'm really learning from this person. I am growing. They are making me a better person. We've also been around those people that make you want to harm yourself, that make you do not want to be around them anymore, that shows them everything in life that you don't want to be. They serve as great examples of the antithesis of what you want to be. And then we've all, kind of gathered that information. And we also say, how am I presenting myself to those who look to me for guidance? And so this book is really just born out of my observation of the effective leaders that I've been able to observe over the course of my career. It started out as, for the most part, anecdotal. Right. And so it's just me in observation. It became scientific after I got my doctorate because I was able to go back in and put some of that science. And ironically, the second book that I held up, The Critical Success Factors of Exemplary Sales Leaders, this is the research that went back to bolster this. This is just the kind of non-academic version of my doctoral dissertation. But I was able to go back and say, okay, if leaders are effective communicators, then what makes them effective? What's the science behind active listening and everything else? So I was able to go back and put that in the book. But it's really just an observation, again, of the things that I've seen throughout the course of my journey. It's a short book. It's 50 something pages, right? And so there's some workbook in the back because there's enough books out there for you to be immersed in, right? Whether you want to read casually or you want to go through a whole exegesis of leadership across the spectrum. That can be done. But this is just, again, a small book based on my observations. And folks always tell me, well, are there just 9 signs of effective leadership? Or they ask, and I say, as you know, there's probably 9 million signs of effective leadership, quite honestly. Is one more important than the other? I don't necessarily think so, right? I think we have to have some balance in all that we do. You could be the best communicator, but be this good in strategy or strategic thinking, and how effective can you be? So that's all it is. It's really just an observation of that. And the book I told you about was my doctoral dissertation. The book that I'm writing now is Letters to Leaders. And again, it's just an observation in letter form of me writing letters to different kinds of leaders, giving them some inspiration as well as some insight into leadership styles, et cetera, et cetera. But the question was, what is the 9 signs? So there are these 9 core common competencies, right? In research, we call them congruent competencies, these things that I have seen across all the leaders that I've interacted with, at least these 9 core competencies. And that's flexibility, low aversion to risk, knowledgeable, visionary, change resilient, strategic, communicator, motivator, and learner. And in the book, I go into details around what that means, some examples of it, and then kind of a call to action. What are some things that you can do to be better in being a more flexible leader? What can you do in being better, being a stronger communicator, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's it. It was written, gosh, you probably have one of the first copies, Andre. It was written back in the day, it was re-released 10 years ago. So that shows you how far back it was. I think I had hair when I first wrote it. So this version of it, this is the 3rd edition that was kind of tweaked post doctoral studies a little. But that's it. It's not a manual. And I always caution folks, and some folks will take it and highlight it and dog it, which is great. But I read books, right? So I'm not going to say that I am the authority in it. This is just from my perspective. And to me, knowledge is simply information that's been processed and applied, right?
Yeah.
And so I always seek information to make it knowledge to me. And so this is just one of the tools in the toolkit among the countless other things that you see behind me, book-wise, and folks that I interact with and folks that I look up to as well.
So I know you may downplay this, but the fact that you have all those books and that you put in the work, and the fact that a committee said, "Congratulations, Dr. Bolden," that means there is some rigor behind this research. So we are benefiting. We're getting a Cliff Notes version of many of the hours that you spent in either observation, study, calculation, all of the interviews, all those things. So I know you say it's your points of view, but this is real research. This is real information, real things that you gather. And it's really funny when you said those, I just kind of stepped back and said, wow, all of those things apply to relationships. It has nothing to do with the workplace. Being flexible in your relationships, being a great communicator, being willing to take a little bit of risk, all of those things, they're critical, right? No matter where you are, whether you're dating or whether you're married. And none of those things mention command and control. None of those things mention being smart. None of those things mentioned being the most knowledgeable. It's really funny because it really validates what you said. It's not this high and lifted up place that people go. It's more, it's your be-ness. It's what you said. I'm gonna steal that. It's what you be.
Please, I stole it. So please take it. And so that's what I'm saying. You see that's why I always start off with what is leadership. Any workshop, any keynote you ever hear me talk about, the first things that are going to come out of my mouth is, what is your perception of leadership? When I say the word leader, what do you think? And I break it down because that's when it makes sense when we can put it on a foundation that's realistic. And to your point, I have exercised all 9 of these signs and more. In my marriage, in my relationships with friends, the ups and downs and the ins and outs. And I'll give you an example for flexibility, right? So in the book, the attribute for flexible is being able to adapt to any circumstance or situation. I'm just paraphrasing. And that's not to be confused with, being spineless, becoming all things to all people and not have any core substance. It's the ability to recognize that when things need to be changed or pivoted. And when I talk to folks about flexible leadership, I say there's 3 enemies of flexibility: tradition, procrastination, and I can't think of the other one right now. History. Tradition, insecurity. Sorry. I do it so much. Tradition, insecurity, and procrastination.
Yep.
Those are the 3 enemies of flexibility, right? So when you think about tradition says we've always done it this way. So in leadership, you and I know this, right? It's like the definition of insanity, right? But think about your relationships, the relationships that you form with people, the relationship that you have with your spouse. Why would we always do it this way? Or I've seen my mother do it, or I've seen my grandparents do this. You and I had a breakthrough some years ago when I recognized some of the components of my pathology came from an area that I never thought it would, based on the things that I had seen, like blew my mind to this, that. And so it shows up in our relationships as it's just the way we've always done it. Right? There's no rhyme or reason to it. The insecurity, right? There's some element of insecurity in all of us. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with, oh gosh, I hope I get this right. Or what will they think if I don't do that? There's some element, because that means you respect the outcome. To me, I'm nervous now doing this, right? It may not seem it. And I've done this for so long, but I have so much respect for you. I have so much respect for the things that I talk about that I keep myself from being comfortable. So my insecurity is my desire to make sure that I get everything out that I've been ordained to do in this moment, and then I leave empty, right? But it also presents as, what will people think about me? And I think about that in a relationship, the way that you authentically love your spouse, or the way that you authentically love your friends. The insecurity that, what if they don't love me back? Or what if, based on things that I've experienced, based on my pathology, I can't do it, right? And so it's paralyzed. And I often say that insecure leaders are dangerous to themselves and to the people with whom they lead. Insecure people, think about the danger that I could be in my relationship or my marriage based on my insecurity, right? So I'm dangerous to myself because I'm hindering what I'm being able to accomplish, but I'm also walling up myself for those who love me or who are trying to love me because of my insecurity about the receiving of that love and the giving of that love. And then finally, it's procrastination. I'll get to it. Right. And so we are leaders. We kick the can down the road. Some leaders inherit other leaders' cans that have been kicked down the road. We'll eventually get to it. What about my relationship? I'll eventually tell them I love them. I'll eventually change. I'll eventually listen to what they have to say and humble myself. And sometimes it may be too late. So you're 100% right. When we break leadership down, again, I feel like, I'm kind of cheating the system by just saying this, it's not that deep. When we break it down to as a leader, my role is to guide as a posture. My posture is to guide. And these are the things that are inherent in my guidance. And I'm successful. Any leader can measure their success based on the results that they see through the folks who are attached to them. I'm successful if my family is successful. It don't mean nothing if I got mine and they didn't get theirs. It's the same in leadership. It does not matter how effective I am in my communication. I could be as flexible as the next person. I could be as strategic, etc. But if there's no growth around me, if there is no development, if there is no return on the investment that I'm putting in them, and I'm not guiding, I'm not commanding, authority, and influencing to guide. I'm literally taking up space, operating in a role, getting what I need to get out of it before I move on.
Whew, that was a healthy cut of meat right there.
Sorry about that.
No, it's this is going to be one of those episodes that I'm going to see a lot of self-reflection. And usually when we publish an episode, there's not comments because everybody's stuff is kind of private and deep, but I get the calls and the texts. So I have a feeling this one's going to generate quite a few calls and texts on the back end, which is good because that's what we want to do. We want to change minds. We want to change behavior. So we're going to speed on through this. So exposure to leadership. Many of us were exposed to leadership in a hierarchical sort of context. Our first leadership was our teacher, probably, right? Person at the head of the class telling us what to do. And then eventually we got on teams, we got bosses, we got pastors, we got whatever. And there was a person in a position that was appointed to do a thing. And the social construct is we follow that person because of the position they're in, right? And then it wasn't until later on in life that there's just, you start learning about these informal, inspirational people in your life that just, they influenced you, I guess one person, I can't say who, I don't know who said it, but you could tell you're a leader because all you got to do is look back. It's not who you can convince to follow you, but if you look back and there's people behind you, you're a leader, right? So can you give some language to the different types of leadership, the different structures of leadership, so it's not, so our viewers don't view it so rigidly? Sure.
And so to your point, I do need to put some science and some structure to it, right? Just guide. It's just you'll be okay, right? But there are, to your point, there are lots and lots and lots, I'll just say that, of formal classifications of leadership styles: transformational leadership, authoritarian, dictatorship, servant leader. Everybody knows Robert Greenleaf and servant leadership, right? Inspirational leadership, when you think of Gandhi or King and others. So you can go out kind of along that line. So there are specific constructs in leadership. There are specific attributes that are based on those constructs, and they're all useful in a certain way. And so I like to joke when I give presentations that, sometimes the last sentence in the paragraph is because I said so. Right. And so that could be that, right. I mean, because that's authoritative, right? That is a command structure leader. That is a hierarchical leader of, right. Once I've gone through the whole, well, let's all put our hands to the plow and figure this out. And what do you want to get out of this? And making sure sometimes you just have to end the sentence with, it's because I say so. Now, there's a lot of stuff that comes before that, but I need to step into my role. Right. My title, not just my posture, but I have to step into my formal role as leader and say, thank you for that information. Thank you for your consideration and your insight, but we're going to do this. And so most of us, because we see those very specific examples of leadership, we adopt them. Right. Or we think we take that in as in, OK, so that's what leadership is. And I've already, ad nauseum told you what it isn't, but it's really just trying to figure, and sometimes it's what works in the instance, right? The situational leadership is literally becoming different kinds of leaders, sometimes very quickly, to accomplish a goal within that specific situation. So I just kind of gave it to you, right? I may start off as inspirational, I may start off as collaborative and communicative, et cetera, but I may end authoritatively, excuse me, I'm creating words.
You can do that. You got a doctorate. Yeah.
Okay. It may end authoritatively because, okay, we've got to put the period at the end of the sentence here. So one of the hallmarks of effective leadership is recognizing that I may need to move through some of these different things. And some people respond differently. There are some people who cannot follow a transformational leader. There's some people who cannot follow an inspirational leader. Some people have to have a command structure because either that's the way they were born and raised, that's how they best learn, right? They have to be given tasks. They have to be held accountable for those tasks. They want to be measured on those tasks. They want to be checked in. They want to be, for lack of a better term, lorded over because that's their comfort level. So some leaders have to be comfortable by saying, okay, if this is what's going to make you effective, then I'm going to make sure that I give you very specific tasks. I'm going to give you very specific deadlines. We're going to check in to ensure that you are along the way in accomplishing those. And if not, then we need to remediate, et cetera, et cetera. Others like to bend towards that transformational, that inspirational. I use the term, and you've heard this before, WIFM. What's in it for me? WIIFM, right? And so at its core, leaders really need to make sure, what is it that makes Andre tick? Right? What is it? Because I've got to get Andre to see that for us to accomplish this goal, it's not just my goal, it's our goal, right? And I want Andre's fingerprints to be on the product, want to be on this goal. So Andre, what is it that motivates you? What is it that it takes for you to see yourself getting from this point to this point, right? And then I need to incorporate that into helping us accomplish those goals. And somebody's with them may be, just tell me what to do and I'll do it, right? Very task oriented. So some leadership is actually management. Right? Leadership is strategic. We're kind of that 30,000 foot view, get the vision, et cetera. But some of it is just very tactical and very matter of factly at this level, because these are the folks that you're dealing with.
Okay. Soaking that in. It's a big onion to unravel, and I see why you've taken so many years, and you just don't have enough lifetime to cover all of the facets.
It's ongoing.
Yeah.
It's ongoing. And you've done research, so you know this, right? It's like you do so much within an infinite time, specific period of time, and it's just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
And the goal, as this is how about leadership, the goal is for somebody to take this and to go deeper. Right. And to dig into those areas and extend on flexibility, extend on some of these other things that I've studied and apply it to their perspective, right, based on their pathology and the folks that they talk to. But yeah, you could be there for days. And let me go back to for a second to one of the things you said earlier. Leadership is not innate. Right. And so that's one of the first things that, and you and I probably had these conversations 30 years ago, right? Are leaders born or are they made? And you remember how I talked about, children are born basically with fear of falling in loud noise. Every other behavior is a learned behavior, right? So that's anthropologically. But Adam Grant, who I love, and I recommend anybody here, go read an Adam Grant book, pick one. Doesn't matter. Listen to Adam Grant's podcast because he does things not just from a leadership perspective, but from a strategic thinking perspective. And leadership just happens to be one of those roads that he travels down. But he gave a quote, and I'm going to read it because I've been using it in my teachings now. Like this sums it up. And it was a tweet, right? Or something on Instagram. He said, leaders are not born, they're made. There's no such thing as a natural leader. Everyone starts out with shortcomings as well as strengths. Leadership potential doesn't depend on the traits you possess. It emerges from the values you choose and the skills you learn. So every one of us has the capacity to be a leader, right? Because I already told you, all you got to do is guide. I go the extra mile. I say, well, what's effective leadership? right? An effective leader to me is someone who uses their skills, their talents, and abilities to make their organization better, to make those around them better. That's effective leadership to me. So Grant is saying every one of us has the capacity to do that. And when we do that, we remove the mystery. Think back to some of the conversations you and I had about the church. Mm-hmm. And I won't go deep, but my own personal journey and how the gospel becomes so rich. It becomes so applicable. It becomes so true mm-hmm. when the mystery of it has to come through a hierarchical structure or it cannot be received. And it has to come through the dogmatic structure of man-made denomination. I won't go deep, mm-hmm. but it has. If it doesn't come through this funnel, then it's not the gospel, and you've got to receive it a certain way. But when folks can open the word for themselves, mm-hmm. right, mm-hmm. and try to figure it out and get counsel, don't just sit there and exegete yourself and say, well, I think the Lord, okay, but let's do some research. Let's do some triangulation. Let's look at this concord. Let's look at this concordance. Let's look at the time in which this was written, right? I had a biblical scholar. I was a minister in training, so I'll say that. But I had a teacher tell me, whenever you see therefore in the Bible, it means, what is it there for? Mm-hmm. Go back into the text to see what came before it. Mm-hmm. Go forward to see who was speaking. What time were they speaking in? Who were they speaking to? That's why I love the Apostle Paul, because Paul is the everyman, mm-hmm. right? Paul makes the gospel applicable to everybody. Leadership is the same way. When you take away the mysteries, mm-hmm. when you say, okay, what does that mean to you? What does that mean? Okay, well then let's do some data. Let's go figure this out. Okay, so extend on that. It removes the mystery, and folks can see themselves in leadership. You could see yourself in the Gospels when you take away all these guardrails and this other people's stuff. Then it makes sense. Then you can be an apologetic person, right? Then you could be a leadership evangelist. That's why I say I preach the gospel of leadership. That's my job. That's my purpose. I know it. I walk in it. I don't have a problem with it. And I don't have to do it from the front of the room. I'm very comfortable. My most comfortable posture is in the back of the room. Is to push other people forward by giving them access to this information and pointing them where to go. Now add to it and go forth and let that be something that you leave with your other folks. So I didn't want to skip over that and not revisit it. We're all born. So there's the mystery. We're all born, mm-hmm. but leadership is something that we learn and it's up to us to develop the skills to be better at it. But I'm no different than you. I just went this way. You went that way, but we can all be leaders.
You heard it here first, y'all. You heard it here. If you heard it before, you heard it here authoritatively that you can become a leader. There is nothing holding you from leadership. You have to submit yourself to learn a little bit. You may have to open yourself up to ideals that you may not have understood or embraced before, but leadership can be your portion if you choose to pursue it. So I think that's that's inspiring for people, because you have a lot of people that just believe that they're not built to lead. They're not built to, and they have a perception of leadership that tells them that leadership is a certain thing. And I think what you've opened our eyes to is that leadership, once again, it comes down to your posture rather than your ability to tell somebody to do something. So,
well, think about it. How many people tell you and your wife, I can't be in a good marriage, or I don't have any good examples, or I don't know how to fill in the blank, right? And it's a cop-out if I can't do it because. What's the remedy?
Yeah.
What can I do to make myself better? What can I do? The stuff is out there. Good leaders are coachable leaders. I tell people all the time, when you ask me something, how you do this, I would do it this way. How would you do it?
Huh.
Okay. I like that. So take a little bit of mine and put a little bit of yours as well. But you have to be coachable in leadership. You have to be coachable in relationships, right? And we're not just talking about marriage relationships. When you're in fellowship with anybody, it's possible. Success is possible, no matter what you've come through or where you've come from, or the examples that you've had. All of us can be successful in life.
So we're gonna round third and get on home. So for people that are beginning the journey, trying to be a better leader, anything you recommend for them? Any resources? Any books that you would recommend? Any books that
I mean, look, the Lord has blessed me. If you want to buy a book, buy a book. I mean, that's up to you. No, like I said, there's just countless things out there, and I update my little list when I find something that works, and I try to move things off of it as well. I would just say figure out what it is you want to accomplish. Right? I want to be a fill in the blank leader. I want to be a better leader here. These are the attributes, right? This is the skill that I want to develop to be better. I want to be a better communicator. I want to be a better speaker. I want to be a better friend, whatever. Once you kind of figure out that skill that you're trying to develop, then look for those resources that are going to help you develop that skill. So I've got books. I mentioned Adam Grant. Think Again is a great book by Adam Grant. And it just talks, I love it because he talks about how to unlearn. And to me, that's important because remember what I said about pathology. Pathology is basically the backpack of all the stuff, for lack of a better term, that we've gathered. Right. And so Grant talks about how to unlearn, how to unpack that stuff and relearn to adjust ourselves, talk about flexibility, originals. In that book, he talks about, great inventions and great inventors and innovators across time. And again, some of those common attributes that, can be ascribed to leadership, but just creative thinking, collaboration, that kind of stuff. I'm a podcaster, so I like to listen to Adam Grant's podcast. Also, one of our fraternity brothers, Kevin Davis, has a great podcast called League of Leaders. And Kevin is an everyman just like me as well. So he has guests on there where they talk about real world experiences around leadership, et cetera, et cetera. There was a book by a colleague of mine, Dr. Gina Cox, around leadership, around diversity, equity, and inclusion called Leading Inclusion. And so she's a dynamic speaker with regard to when folks think of DEI, it's not just what we would think of in corporate DEI, right? Making sure that underrepresented groups are there, but just this concept about making sure that every face is seen and every voice is heard. Think about how important that is in leadership, right? Making sure that you can create a safe space where everybody who's there feels seen and heard. Think about that as your role in the home, in your friendships, in your relationships. How if you had an inclusive mentality with no matter what, I see you and I hear you. So that's a great book by Gina. And I'm happy if anybody reaches out. I can get very specific, but I just say figure out what it is you want to use skill you want to develop. And remember I just said it's one of the most studied subjects in human history. There's a lot of stuff out there, and wink, wink, a lot of it's free too. So
free.com, baby.
Yeah, I know. I'm giving away money, but I'm just saying the TED Talks, YouTube, it's a lot of stuff out there.
Well, we're going to hang your information out there in terms of your website, Tony Bolden Enterprises. We're going to hang your socials out there so people can get in touch with you and follow you as needed. Just want to thank you, brother. You have dropped some jewels on us today. Pause. You have dropped some knowledge on us today in terms of just leadership and understanding how to migrate this far off concept of leadership in the workplace and in the marketplace to how we just become leaders. I'm not even going to say leader, our authentic selves. How do we just be? How do we take on a posture? So I like that language. Hopefully the brothers out there can start to address it and sort of incorporate that into our lives, use some of the tools you've given us. And man, just want to thank you. Any parting words for the folks before I throw you into the green room? We ain't got no chicken wings in there for you, but we're going to throw you in the green room.
I mean, what kind of show is this where I don't even get, I don't have any green M&Ms. I mean, what is this, man? I'm at home. What is this? No, again, just thank you for your friendship, brother. If anybody knows us,
yep.
We go back. So
yes, sir.
I appreciate you using me in this avenue. If people don't remember anything that I've said, because I talk fast and I say a lot. I'm from Chicago. I've been down in Georgia for 30 years, but I still talk like I'm right with you.
With no accent, right?
With no accent, right? If you don't remember anything that I've said, just remember leadership is a posture. It's not a role. It's not just a title. It's a posture. All leadership is being able to guide. Your job is to guide people along a way, and anybody can do it. And just be. That's it.
Leadership
just be.
is a posture. You guide and just be. That's going to be my mantra. All right, sir. Thank you very much. Say hello to your lovely wife and children for me. God bless you, and thank you for being on the show.
Appreciate you, brother. God bless.
All right, folks, that's it. That's it for this episode. Dr. Bolden has just dropped some wisdom of the ages upon us. Just be. Take on this posture. Take on this posture so that you can be better, not just in the workplace. Because the thing about the nuggets and the jewels that he gave us today is that these are not just applicable in relationships. They're applicable in the workplace, our interpersonal relationships, our friendships, whether we're volunteering. You can now start to unlock a part of yourself that you either didn't think exist or only existed in a specific context. You can lead without just command control. You can lead and just be inspirational, influential. You can lead and help us transition from one place to another. You can lead and just say inspirational words. There are many ways that you can lead, and that's what's really, really valuable about his time. And once again, make sure you follow him on the socials. Get the book. I got a copy. I got an original copy. It's going to be worth a lot of money one day. So I got it in my plastic bag wrapped up in bubble wrap, and y'all can't have it. So make sure that you get out there and get this brother's book. Follow him. I'm sure he is open for the right fee to come speak at an event, or at your church or any of your social organizations or anything like that. And I've seen him do his thing, and you will leave changed once he's had the chance to speak to you. So please do that. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. This is King's Edition, and we will be coming back to you with another big topic to help the kings out there. Ladies, we're not leaving you out. But we want to make sure the brothers are whole and are able to improve so that you can feel that improvement in your relationships. Just want to thank y'all. Y'all be blessed. And as always, peace.